Hi everyone, welcome to my 5-minute watercolours for relaxation and stress reduction. Today I'm painting a Christmas robin in a loose, expressive style, which would be ideal for a Christmas card or a last-minute little gift. So, let's get painting. First step is to sketch out the robin. It's hard to see pencil on the video because you do it very lightly. So just to show you what the sketch looks like, I've done it with a 2B pencil. You'd use a much lighter pencil for your real sketch. An HB or an H would be fine. Okay, so now we have the robin sketched out on the real paper. I've added the basic outline of some pine needles and berries to finish it off. This painting needs a good quality paper for the best results, so I've chosen a piece of Saunders Waterford cold press knot paper, £140 made from cotton rag. You could use Arches as well, or Fabriano, Clairefontaine or Bockingford is a very good paper if you want to go for a slightly cheaper option. The main thing is that the paper you use needs to be thick, at least £140. I use artist quality paints, mostly Winsor & Newton from the UK and Schminke from Germany. When I started painting, those were two of the best brands. There are many more brands available now, but I've been painting a long time and my paints have been with me longer than my grown-up children. When you invest in watercolours, many of those little tubes will last a very long time. So let's start painting. I always like to pop in the robin's eye first of all, because that seems to give him character and personality while I'm painting him. I use a number 2 brush, and mixing a small amount of indigo or black, I paint in the dark part of his eye, leaving a tiny white spot for the reflection of light. Then I mix a little light grey and put it on the underside of the bird's beak for shadow. Don't worry about detail at this point because at the end you can come back in and touch up any problems. Now I'm using a number 8 brush here to wet the robin, leaving a narrow band of white paper dry around his eye to keep it untouched by the water. This painting is done wet in wet, and you won't want to interfere much with the paint once you put it on the paper. Using the number 8 brush again, I'm dropping in some burnt sienna to indicate the shape of the bird's head and back. Then a small amount of cobalt blue or ultramarine blue for the lovely bluish feathers which are just in front of the robin's wings. And then some alizarin crimson for the underlayer of the robin's breast. Next, I drop in a little quinacridone gold on the underside of the breast, and to strengthen the red and add some variety to it, I pick up some cadmium red and go into the breast again. We need to darken the back feathers, so I mix some sepia with the burnt sienna and drop that in along the top line. Soften any hard lines which are appearing on the edge of the painted area, and if you've added a little too much water, just blot it away with a clean paper towel. I also added a little more cobalt blue and then went back in again with the quinacridone gold to link the breast with the back feathers. A little more softening around the edges, a bit of blotting. Now we're going to let the bird dry while we carry on with the foliage. Pick up some fairly dry sap green using a number 2 brush. Just draw a simple line to indicate where the leaves will go, and then brush in the needles in a fairly loose way, making fine lines to indicate the way the needles lie. Repeat this for a second leaf. Mix a slightly darker green using some indigo with your sap green, or use hooker's green with a bit of indigo, and add some darker needles here and there to give depth. And now for the berries, which are always fun. Pick up some reasonably thick cadmium red and paint some round shapes, leaving white areas as highlights to give 3-dimensional shape to the berries. It's always good to paint in odd numbers, say 3 or 5, because that gives a better balance to your picture. Here I've added a touch of quinacridone gold, and now I'm coming in with some quinacridone violet, or any purple paint will do, which mixes with the red and the gold to give a purple shadow. Come back in with a dry brush to soften if it doesn't bleed in of its own accord. And one more pine leaf to add balance to the whole picture. Now that the paint is quite dry around the beak area, I can go back with a little more light grey and darken the underside where it's more shaded, and add a little light grey on the top side of the beak as well. When the bird's completely dry, I'll come back and complete the eye. And there we are, nearly finished. Put the painting aside, don't touch it anymore, and let it dry.